100 years ago, the Grand Petrichar Hotel must have been incredible. The main building sits on a hillside overlooking the mountain town of Palace Springs, Colorado. Every bit of its architecture drips with the kind of extravagant attention to detail that only the robber barons of the late 1800s could have afforded. Staring up at the hotel, it's always been easy for me to put myself in the perspective of a young aristocrat with more money than sense. Yes, back in the day, the Grand Petrichar Hotel would have truly inspired awe. But now, it inspires little more than a sense of loss at what once was. True, the hotel puts up a valiant effort at appearing as a high-class and exclusive place, but a closer look will expose the truth behind the facade. The glass windowsills sit at crooked angles. The walking paths crisscrossing the grassy hillside have cracked and crumbling concrete with handrails painted to hide a layer of rust. Even the uniforms worn by the hotel employees show their age. They're all expensive and formal, but the fabric is faded and worn. The Grand Petrichar Hotel stands in the river of time, clawing desperately for a way to slow its descent into decay and obscurity. I reached down and adjusted my name tag before brushing some of the dust off the check-in counter. I'd been working at the hotel all summer, waiting for the next college semester to start. I go to school in Colorado Springs, just a few hours' drive through the mountains. The bell at the front of the hotel chirped as a mother and son walked in. The mother looked to be in her early 30s. She was dressed conservatively, but a glance at her glasses and the watch on her wrist told me that she had serious money. "I should have a reservation for the next few days," she said. "Sure thing," I said, typing on my computer. "Name?" She gave me her information. When I'd typed it all into the computer and confirmed her details, I turned and searched among the wooden boxes for her key. The cubby containing her room was blocked by a small note which read, "Bathroom out of service." I sighed. Another one. "Ma'am, it seems that room 17 is out of service," I said. "However, all of the odd-numbered rooms look out towards the mountain, so room 19 should give you the same experience. Is that okay?" When she agreed, I grabbed the heavy iron key out of its wooden box. The key was dusty, which confused me. I grabbed a nearby rag and wiped it before handing it to the woman. "You should have a great view from your balcony." Her son stared up at me. He looked to be no older than 9 or 10. "Why are you wearing that hat?" he asked me. I reached up and grabbed the outdated bellboy cap that accompanied my uniform. "It keeps my brains inside my head. They'll fall out otherwise." The boy narrowed his eyes. "Yeah, right, it looks dumb, you should—" The boy's mother shushed him before thanking me in that monotone voice that anyone who's worked in the service industry is familiar with. A bellhop carrying a cart full of their bags accompanied them to a nearby elevator. Janet, one of the cleaning ladies, pushed a laundry basket by the front desk. "Cute kid," she said sarcastically. We'd gotten to know each other pretty well over the summer. She had been working for the hotel for almost 30 years. I shrugged. "I don't mind. What bothers me is that I always have to switch people's reservations. Nothing worse than having to explain to a customer that their bathroom sink is busted." Janet paused. "Which room did you switch them into?" 19, I said, the one next door to their reservation. I'm just glad that she didn't seem to care. I trailed off at her expression. "Is something wrong with room 19? "It's probably fine," she said. "I just know that we try to fill up all the other rooms first. It's got a bad reputation, that's all." She turned and continued, pushing the cart towards the laundry room before I could ask any more questions. Later that night, I returned to the hotel for my shift as a security guard. Not many people live in Palace Springs, so lots of the same workers work multiple jobs in the hotel. Hotel security is technically handled by a separate company, so I don't get paid overtime. Had to be a coincidence that the same guy is the owner of both companies, right? I shook my head. At least I didn't have any managers breathing down my neck when I worked nights. I walked along the cracked concrete paths, doing my best to resist the temptation to return to the security booth early. I'd been doing this job for the entire summer, and while I'd grown accustomed to the front of the hotel, the back always creeped me out. The hotel sat on a hill overlooking the town, but there was a massive pine forest that encroached on the hotel from behind. The forest ran up to the peak of a mountain a mile or so behind the property. In theory, there was a fence blocking the forest from the grounds, but I knew it was in a serious state of disrepair. I rounded the back of the hotel using nothing more than the light from the moon to guide me along the path. I'd long since learned that using a flashlight only blinded you to everything outside its small circle of light. The path crossed into a grove of trees, blocking out what little moonlight remained. I had taken a few cautious steps when I heard a twig snap, accompanied by a faint whisper. I would have dismissed the twig as a squirrel or something, but the whisper. I crept forward, one hand held tight to my still unlit flashlight. The whispering grew louder. Then a noise came from the woods that I can only compare to the sound a dog makes when it shakes its fur. Whatever made the sound was standing just a few feet in front of me. I placed my thumb over the button on my flashlight, aimed and flicked it on. The beam illuminated two figures, a large deer and a 9-year-old boy holding a bag of bread. It was the same boy from earlier that day, and the bag of bread he held was emblazoned with the hotel's logo. He was extending a single stolen slice towards the deer. He jerked back in shock as the deer turned and bounded away into the woods. The boy was terrified. I pointed the light away, sighed, and said, "Swipe that from the kitchens, huh? Does your mom know you're out here?" "Yes," the boy said. He looked terrified. I sighed, then shone the light on myself. "I'm the guy with the stupid hat from the check-in desk. Follow me back to the hotel." I turned away and started back down the path, feeling a little guilty for scaring the kid so bad. "Do I have to go back into my room?" the kid asked as he followed behind me. "Yeah," I said, my annoyance flashing back, but there was something about his tone of voice that gave me pause. We rounded the path to the front of the hotel where I turned and crouched down to get to eye level. "Why don't you want to go back?" He didn't respond for a second. "My mom's acting weird." "Weird how?" I asked. I figured it was probably drugs. That or she was getting drunk. There was a time after my dad left that my mom got wasted every night. Luckily, it had only lasted a few weeks. "I don't know," he said, staring down. "She was talking to someone in the bathroom, but there wasn't anyone there." "Well, let's go see her real quick," I said, figuring I must have been right about the drugs. We walked inside the hotel, then took the old-fashioned elevator up. The owner refused all proposals to renovate, insisting that the old-timey feel was a part of the charm. We walked down the hallway to room 19, then stopped outside the door. I raised my hand and gave my most official-sounding knock. The boy stood next to the wall. He seemed to be hiding away from the door. The door slid open, revealing the boy's mother wearing a nightgown. "Good evening, ma'am," I said. "I found your boy outside and just wanted to make sure he made it back to you safe." Her eyes were glazed as she turned to look at her son. He was doing his best to avoid eye contact. "Thank you," she said. "Before you go, there's one other thing I need your help with." Internally, I braced myself. Then I put on my best customer service smile and said, "Absolutely, how can I help you, ma'am?" "The sink is broken," she said, her voice slurred. "I can't turn the hot water on." I breathed an internal sigh of relief. "Why don't you let me take a look then?" I said. "I've seen that happen before." I walked into the room and turned right to walk towards the bathroom when I felt a hand pull on the back of my shirt. It was the boy. He was gripping it tightly with a tense expression. The mother reached out and swatted it before pulling the boy back. "Sorry about that," she said. I looked them up and down before turning to enter the bathroom. A cast iron tub sat in the corner with a thick shower curtain that had been pulled closed. The faucet dripped water, and I could tell by the sound of the plink that the tub was almost full. I leaned over the sink and began fiddling with the knobs, confused. They both worked fine. Then the bathroom door slammed shut. I reached for the handle, but the knob spun over and over again in my hand. It had broken somehow. I gripped my teeth. This crazy lady, she'd broken her door and then slammed me inside. At least there was a window above the tub that I could use to. The sound of splashing water cut off my thoughts. I turned to stare at the bathtub where water was spilling out onto the floor. Something had been lying in the tub and was now standing up behind the thick curtain. A sudden, horrible tension stole over my body. The woman and the boy were both outside the bathroom. They'd checked in alone. Who was this? A hand reached around the curtain. My eyes shot towards it, trying to see if it was a man or woman. The lights in the bathroom flicked off just as the rings of the shower curtain screeched against the metal railing. I turned and started banging on the bathroom door, yelling to be let out. The footsteps crept across the tile floor towards me. "Let me out of here," I shouted. Something wet touched my ear as the door burst open. I fell forward, toppling over the kid who'd opened the door in my haste to back away. I reached the far wall, then spun back towards the bathroom. The lights had turned back on, illuminating an empty room. The mom was standing beside me, rubbing her forehead with a hand. Her eyes looked much clearer than they had before. What are you doing in our room?" she asked as I got to my feet. "There's been a problem with your reservation," I said, my mind saying the words before I could think them. "Gather your things, you're getting a free upgrade to a suite." I got to my feet and grabbed the kid's collar and ran for the hallway. We waited outside as the mom packed her things back into her suitcase.